think you might be connected to someone famous in history? Are you trying to trace members of your family, or think they could be involved in a royal celebration, a battle, maybe even a scandal? I'm Sian Williams, and this is My Family Secrets Revealed. We've gathered a team of historical and ancestry experts to solve intriguing family mysteries.
Now, your family are a very well-known Russian family.
This is where you're from.
I had no idea.
After poring over birth records, doing DNA tests and building family trees,
Terence's father
yes,
and Charles Craig's father were brothers.
They'll reunite people with long-lost relatives.
An auntie that I've never known about.
Yeah?
My goodness.
Prove links to famous faces.
Is there any other reason why you think you might be related to George Clooney?
And solve family puzzles about long-lost relatives.
They cast him out of the hospital.
They threw him out of the hospital when he was sick.
Yeah.
There'll be scandal along the way.
Daisy shot him.
Oh dear, wicked.
It is a bit of a scandal.
Stories of heroism.
It's just really overwhelming that he was so brave, you know.
There'll be unexpected reunions, tears of joy.
Thank you.
And a chance for people to find out who their ancestors really were.
I wonder if you recognise this man.
It's my dad, yeah.
Coming up today, one man's journey to reunite war medals.
I find it very emotional.
Suspicions behind a changing surname.
He's a chancer.
He's a chancer.
And a family rumour finally solved.
That's news. That's news to all of us.
Welcome to Capesthorne Hall, a historic stately home in Macclesfield in Cheshire, where people from all over the UK have been flocking to have their questions answered. We're here to reunite families with their treasure, with their loved ones, and with the truth behind the rumours that have been passed down through generations.
I wanted to try and find the brother of my great-grandfather who took his side of the family, the Trevina family, to America.
So I thought coming along today may give me a few more clues as how to find out that extra bit of information that I need.
Among the tasks for our experts, writer and historian Tessa Dunlop is helping one man find the owners of an honourable wartime collection.
You're very keen, aren't you, to find a home for these medals?
Yes.
Historian and law lecturer Onyeka Nubia has some tips for tracing a band of brothers.
We'd like you to look at the electoral registers list and the absent voters list.
But solving our first family mystery is ancestry genealogist Brad Argent. David Bunce from Cheshire wants to finally dispel a family rumour about his great-grandmother and a romantic link to Italy.
I believe that my great-grandmother was Italian, and she eloped with my great-grandfather when she was 17.
Io mi chiamo David.
My name is David Bunce. I am married to Rachel, have 2 children, and I live in Warrington. La nostra camicia, it is my shirt. Our shirt. I joined the army at 16, and I spent 6 years in the parachute regiment. I then left, joined Greater Manchester Police, of which I've now retired from. I first heard the story that my great-grandmother, Clara Miranda, had come to this country as an Italian immigrant from one of my elder sisters. She described to me that Clara was a young Italian servant girl working in the shop stroke house of a chemist, John Henry Brind, and they ended up eloping and set up a new family together. There hadn't been much talked about because Elsie Marguerite, who was the daughter of Clara and John Henry Brind, was actually born illegitimately. And it was just this story that was floating around the family. If it's not right that my great-grandmother was Italian, that's fine. I can live with that. And I'll be pleased and happy that we've got a bit further on in this story. But it's a feeling, and my gut feeling is it's right.
David, welcome. So this photograph here is of your great-grandmother, Clara, and your grandmother, Elsie Margaret Brind.
Yes?
Yeah. Yeah, and Henry John / John Henry Brind. And he is your great-grandfather.
Yes.
We'll focus mostly on Clara and see if we can get to the bottom of this Italian story of yours.
I want to deal with the uncertainty and know one way or another.
So here we have the marriage record. It says Henry John in this record. So we have a piece of evidence that says it's Henry John and not John Henry. It gives his age as 38, and he's a bachelor. And his rank or profession is general labourer at railway works. Now, there was a family story about him being a chemist.
Yes.
Don't know that the railways employed many chemists.
No.
And then we have Clara Miranda Gray, and she's a widow, which tells us she's probably been married before. We get father's name, Charles Elbro. That gives us a maiden name. So the next step to take is to look for a marriage record between a Clara Miranda Elbra and somebody called Gray. And here we find one. Here, in 1892, there's a John Gray marrying a Clara Miranda Elbra. Let's see how much more of that story we can tell. John and Clara had, I don't know if you can count them there, 11 children during the time that they were married.
Yeah. That's a lot of kids.
That is a lot of children. And the spacing between most of them is reasonably regular.
Yeah.
This is your family.
Yeah.
These are kind of like your half-great aunts and uncles.
That's a lot of birthday cards. A lot of birthday cards. It's fair to say the marriage was consummated.
A number of times.
Yeah. That's news. That's news to all of us.
We wanted to have a look at the 1911 census. You can see here, by 1911, you have John Gray, Clara Gray. Some of their children still with them. And if you look at the bottom record... John Brind. It says nephew.
Nephew.
So this gives us a snapshot of John and Clara Gray in 1911. And it shows us how Clara met Henry John Brind. I want to come back to this marriage record of Henry John Brind and Clara Miranda Gray. It's the 17th of July, 1923. They are both living at 23 Ermine Street in Swindon. John Gray, Clara's first husband, had died about 7 weeks before they got married. But what's your connection to the family?
The connection's through my mother, who is the daughter of Elsie Marguerite, who subsequently is the daughter of Henry John Brind and Clara Miranda Gray, as she was, then Brind.
So now we need to have a look at Elsie Margaret Brind's birth record, just again to try and get some things into context. It doesn't mention the name of the father, but she does have the Brind surname.
Yes.
And if you look at the date, it's 1918. Now remember, Clara and Henry John Brind didn't get married until 1923. At this time, it's 1918. Clara was married to John Gray. Your grandmother was born to a woman who was married, but just not
to the father.
Not to the father. It's kind of like, I'm just struggling to get my head around that idea. So we have to kind of think, okay, what was going on? I imagine at some point the relationship between John Gray and Clara disintegrated. You know, we're talking about a period in history where if they decided that they didn't want to be together anymore, they couldn't get a divorce. So perhaps they still even lived as husband and wife, but lived separate lives.
That makes sense. It's logical.
But you had one question. We think she's Italian. Where's it come from? Let's see if we can find evidence for her elsewhere in the records before she was an adult. This is the census record for 1881, and you can see Clara. And can you see where it says she was born?
Fernham.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Fernham in Berkshire is where she's born. So that's not part of Italy I'm familiar with.
No.
But just to be sure, to be absolutely certain, we wanted to have a look at your DNA. The average Brit is about 40% British. You are 76% British. And you have no Italian DNA, none. But there's one more thing I really want to share with you. We took your DNA and we connected with a second cousin of yours, who very, very kindly sent us a photo of Clara. Now, I don't think you've seen this photo before.
Wow.
She's clearly a very beautiful woman. You can see she has dark features, which would have lended credence to the notion that she was Southern European.
Wow.
That's your great-grandmother.
Yeah. Brilliant. That is lovely. What a woman. Yes, I've got a second cousin who never existed up to now.
Yeah.
Who's got some fantastic photographs.
But I kind of feel you're going to walk out of here with a much bigger family.
Yes. Much bigger family.
David, thank you very much.
No, it's OK. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you're not Italian?
No, would appear not.
Disappointed?
Yes, but not.
And all those kids?
Yeah, all those cousins. That's a lot of birthday cards. So, yeah, that's a lot of catching up.
Welcome to your new family.
Yeah. Well, they say Italians have big families, don't they?
So have you enjoyed today?
Yes, a lot of food for thought. It solved, definitely, definitively, an age-old family story and just opened up a whole new wormhole of other possibilities.
So you're glad you came?
Oh, yeah, massively.
Oh, I'm pleased. I'm pleased, because I didn't want you to go away disappointed. Thank you so much for coming. And arrivederci.
All right, love.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Or whatever it is, yeah.
So David now knows he's not Italian. But we've more than made up for it by introducing him to a whole new branch of the family tree. During the Great War, towns and streets of young men were encouraged to join up together in so-called pals battalions. Up next with a mystery involving love, loyalty and lives lost for king and country is Keith Attwood.
After my aunt died, I discovered some memorabilia which uncovered a love story from World War I. My name is Keith Attwood. I was born 76 years ago in Ladywood, Birmingham. Married to Margaret for 53 years. 2006, Margaret and I had occasion to go down to London because my Auntie Violet had died, my Auntie Vi. And we had the job of sorting the house out. And while we were going through the things, I came across this small wooden cigar box. In the cigar box was a couple of sets of medals, which I'd never seen before, knew nothing about. Apparently, my auntie's mother, Rose Wicks, had been married twice. Her first husband was a William Knight, and one set of medals and this big disc were in his name. There's also another set of medals for her second husband, a guy called George Beach, who was my Auntie Vi's father. It reminded me of a story that Auntie Vi had told me one time. William Knight married Rose Wicks in 1909, and they had a daughter 1910, and I've not been able to find anything at all else about her. It appears that William Knight, who must have been friends with George Beach, actually stated if anything happened to him in the during the First World War, would he look after Rose? William Knight died of wounds in June 1917. And George Beach must have kept that promise because he'd married Rose in 1919, 2 years after. And they had a daughter, and they named her Violet, and she was my Auntie Vi. Because Auntie Vi never had any children, and I couldn't find anything about Rose from the first marriage, there's nobody really I can find to actually give these medals to or pass them on to. So I'm hoping that this programme will resolve that problem.
Keith, thank you so much for joining us today and bringing us a wonderful story accessed through your late Aunt Vi, who was an aunt through marriage, not a blood relative of yours. No. And the couple didn't have any children.
No.
But after her death, you find this extraordinary World War I legacy attached to both her father and her mother's first husband.
Correct.
So a William and a George.
Yep.
You mentioned your aunt said they were both pals before war broke out.
I believe so, yeah. You know, it was just something said in passing that apparently William had said to George, if anything happens to me, look after Rose. And then we discovered that he married Rose 2 years after William died.
So here we can see your blood uncle John, brother of your mother Alice, married to Violet, no children down their line. She was the only daughter of a George Beach, who was the second husband of Rose. Rose originally married to a William Knight, and you mentioned there the birth of their daughter, Rose, about whom you don't know. Let's pick up on William's story, if we may. I know in that wonderful old cigar box you've got his medals.
As you say, a war medal and a victory medal. That was William's medals.
So that was the British War Medal, which anyone who fought in the British Army got, and so too the victory. So we've got there for William your British and your victory medals, the two of them, which means he didn't sign up before 1916, because the Star Medal was awarded to those who signed up as volunteers in 1914 and 1915.
But what surprised me was this article here. This is what is known as a dead man's penny.
Mm-hmm. These were indeed the dead man's pennies, or widow's pennies, as they were known, because so often, tragically, the widow was the recipient. These widow's pennies were given out with a scroll, and we've taken a picture of that scroll so everyone can see it. He whom this scroll commemorates was numbered among those who, at the call of king and country, left all that was dear to them, endured hardness, faced danger, and finally passed out of the sight of men by the path of duty and self-sacrifice, giving up their own lives that others might live in freedom. Let those who come after see to it that his name be not forgotten. Well, you're doing a good job of that today, Keith.
It's true. I find it very emotional.
Certainly not forgetting William's name.
It's not just him. Everybody that's died in any of the wars.
We know that he died while assigned to the Royal Irish Rifles on the 6th of June, 1917, and he died during the Battle of Messines.
All right.
Now we'll move to George, because, of course, there were two men in this story, weren't there, during the war?
In this story,
Yeah. And he's the recipient of all three medals, the hat-trick, if you like, the Star, the British, and the victory medals, and there was a nickname for them. They were called Pip, Squeak and Wilfred. Have you heard of Pip, Squeak and Wilfred?
No, I haven't.
Ah, well, it's after a cartoon strip character. And they were a dog, a penguin and a rabbit.
Oh,
but a real kind of survivors three. To have the Star as well meant you'd gone through from the beginning of the war. So no mean feat for George. And then he returns to civilian life. In late 1919, he marries, of course, his friend's widow, Rose. So quite a sweet little love story, a happy ending. You're very keen, aren't you, to find a home for these medals?
Yes.
Explain why that's so important to you, Keith.
I discovered that William and Rose had a daughter, also named Rose, but my Auntie Vi never spoke of her at all and knew nothing about her.
You're quite right, they did have a daughter. I'm going to show you now something that is... It is sad.
Oh, dear.
I'm afraid, Keith. This is a death certificate from 1911, June 1911, when Rose Louise Knight succumbs to bronchial pneumonia. So I'm afraid she doesn't live to see her second birthday.
18 months old as well. Yeah. Sad.
And according to all the records, Rose and George didn't have any other children. It was only Violet. She was an only child.
Yeah.
We came, therefore, across what's sort of more commonly known as a family history roadblock. We thought, well, we'll see if George had any brothers or sisters. And that would take you to nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews, and extend that tree out a bit. So that's exactly what we did. Here is the birth certificate for George. The relevance of this birth certificate is it gives us a name for both his father, Thomas, and his mother, Annie. And once you have names for the parents, you can find the names for the other children. So here we have the family tree. We know that George, from his birth certificate, had parents Thomas and Annie. Thomas and Annie had more than one child. Agnes was a daughter, an older sister to George. She marries Thomas Cates. Thomas and Agnes have a couple of children at least, one of whom is William. William marries Matilda Mobbs in 1930, and they go on to have not one, but 4 children. We found all 4, okay? Here is a merry picture of the gang. And I have here a message. They were unable to make it today, but they have written you a note. Dear Keith, my name is Albert Cates, and I'm writing on behalf of my sisters Eileen, Sylvia, Christine, and I. We were really surprised and delighted to hear of your search. Our grandmother was Agnes Beach, who we have been informed was sister of George Beach. I recall many, many years ago visiting George's wife. We would love very much to meet you sometime in the near future and talk about our connection, hear all about George, and tell you about our family, and of course, see these wonderful medals. Thank you for caring for them and searching for our family.
I don't know what to say, apart from thank you. You're wonderful. Yeah.
I think you'll have a lot to talk about. They were absolutely delighted when we contacted them. I look forward to hearing how you get on.
Thank you.
I think your Aunt Violet would be thrilled.
She would.
Really thrilled.
She would.
Well done, you, Keith.
Thank you.
Keith, Margaret, what a result. You must be thrilled.
Oh, very thrilled. I really felt for him because it means such a lot to him about the family.
I wanted to get these medals back to blood relatives of the family.
And it clearly means an enormous amount to George's family too, doesn't it? You could see by their faces.
Oh, yeah. Means a lot. And I'm looking forward to meeting them, you know.
Well, they look like great fun, don't they? So I'd imagine you'll be heading down to Essex quite soon, yeah?
Don't think I could afford to get a round of drinks in, though.
I'm really glad we managed to do this because we've managed to reunite such precious things with the family to which they belong.
Definitely. I'm so pleased that, you know, the team have managed to track it down. It's beyond words, really. All I can say is thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A very happy ending for Keith. Now Tessa has found George Beach's blood relatives, Keith can reunite them with their ancestors' medals. Next, a search to discover why a great-great-grandfather kept changing his name.
My name's Christine Johnson. I became a great-grandmother 2.5 years ago. They just make me happy, and it's lovely. I'm going to cry. I've got some unanswered questions and brick walls that I've come across. James Gorham stroke Luckhurst was my great-great-grandfather and was born around 1825. He became a plasterer by trade. He got married in the name of Luckhurst. He married a lady called Anne Taylor, and they had, I think, about 10 children. And when, in about 1850, he turned up in the East End of London, his name changed on the censuses to Gorham. And I'd love to know why he chose the name Gorham. What is it that he was hiding? I'm just intrigued, really intrigued with this one, because I think there is a story to tell, and I have not got to the bottom of it. I've got only one main thing, actually, in my head about it, and I think he was a bit of a criminal. And I'm really hoping, I know it sounds awful, but for my tree purposes, that it was something really bad, and he got away with it. Hopefully.
Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
This James Gorham Luckhurst, quite a man of mystery.
He certainly is, yeah.
Let's look at what the family tree looks like.
Yep.
So this is the Gorham line. There's you and your mum, and then we step back to your grandfather, Ernest.
Yep.
Your great-grandfather, Frederick.
Yep.
And then our man of mystery, James Gorham. Or is it Luckhurst? Now, we know he was a plasterer.
Yeah.
And that's important. When you're struggling in records to find people, occupations can be a wonderful way to anchor someone. This gives us somewhere to go. He was born before civil registration.
Yeah.
Civil registration was 1837.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you had the Parish Record Act of 1758, which meant baptisms needed to be recorded by every parish. This is the parish record in Kent, 1827, and you can see it there, James. And it's Luckhurst, which is just Luckhurst.
Yeah.
There's no father recorded. So his mother is Mary Ann Luckhurst. She's a single woman.
That was the name he was born into, then?
That was the name. When he came into the world, that's the name he was given. And we have it in his baptism record. We know why he used Luckhurst. In the marriage record, right, in his marriage to Anne Taylor now. So now the question mark is around Gorham.
Yeah.
We had a look at the 1841 census, right, which is the first national census in the UK. We've found him on that record. So do you want to have a guess as to what surname he was using in 1841?
I haven't a clue.
Let's have a look. There he is. And it's Gorham. He's living with James and Betsy Gorham.
Right.
I think what's happened to his mother, Mary Ann Luckhurst, is Mary and James Gorham Sr. were living together. Mary died.
Right.
James married Betsy and continued to bring up James as his son.
I see.
So we have the Gorhams and we have the Luckhursts. We have good concrete evidence now to explain how those names came to be associated with your family. But let's look at the marriage certificate. This is 1846. He marries as Luckhurst. He fills out the paperwork under what his baptised name, Luckhurst. I imagine he wanted to honour his mother, Mary Ann Luckhurst. And this is where it starts to get, if it's possible, just a little bit more complicated. When we look at the 1851 census record, he's Gorham now. So he's changed his surname. There might have been suspicious things that were motivating him to do that. So we thought we'd have a look through the records and see what we could find. So we looked at the criminal registers, and this is in Kent.
James Luckhurst.
This is a James Luckhurst, and he's being done for larceny. He was arrested for something, he was tried, he was found not guilty. OK, so you have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
One has to wonder if he didn't get in a little bit of trouble and said, all right, well, I'm going to leave the name Luckhurst behind, I'm going to be someone else.
Yeah.
We think he pops up again. Now, this time, he was charged with assaulting James Baker, a constable, whilst in the execution of his duty at East Peckham. And it's Gorham now. Now, it says down the bottom here, the prisoner, who was a returned convict, was sentenced to 12 months hard labour.
Returned convict.
So that means he had prior.
Right.
So we wanted to see just what else was thrown up. So we found another piece in the newspaper. Now, I'm just going to zoom in.
Highway robbery. With violence at Folkestone. Wow.
When we looked into this further, he was discharged without conviction on account that Henry Underdown was under the influence of alcohol and therefore his evidence couldn't be taken. So now we're starting to see a picture of the man and there's potentially some patterns of behaviour. It's not like he's decided to set out on a career as a criminal. I think he's just seen opportunities.
A chancer.
He's a chancer. So I'm starting to wonder if this isn't the thing that's exacerbated all this name changing. He was hiding.
Right.
He was hiding then, and to some extent he's still hiding now.
Yeah.
In the records.
I suppose I was hoping for something naughty. We could make him more interesting.
We've been able to confirm your suspicions that James might have been a bit of a naughty boy now and again.
Thank you so much.
Chris, thank you so much for sharing the story with us and introducing us to this mysterious man, James Gorham. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. I'm really quite pleased he's confirmed my suspicions and with exactly what he did. I'm really pleased and relieved to be finally knowing what my great-great-grandfather really got up to. That's what I was hoping for. We all like a bit of a scandal in the background. It's been a family mystery that's been solved, and I'm really happy about that. I won't have to keep looking now.
Another family secret revealed. Christine was hoping for an exciting conclusion. I think we've delivered it. Coming up, is it coincidence that a random photo of a young lad from the 1870s looks identical to someone living today? Or are they actually related?
When you look at the two photographs, the one and the same person, even the hairstyle looks similar.
Yeah.
You know?
But first, Keith Attwood is back to get some tips on how to move forward with a different family mystery. Over to law lecturer and historian Onyeka Nubia.
My great-grandfather had 6 children. There was only 4 that survived for the start of the First World War.
I see.
I hope to find out why these 4 brothers weren't called up for conscription in 1916 when the rest of the country was. They were aged between 30 and 39.
Right.
So I can't understand why none of them really were called up.
So, Alfred, Frank, Albert and Bert Attwood. After the Somme offensive in November of 1916, conscription began in earnest. Not every eligible person was called up in 1916. Problem is that about 60% of all World War I records were destroyed in September 1940.
Oh, right.
During a bombing raid. The brothers may have served on the home front, or they were possibly employed in a reserve occupation. For example, industrial output, teachers, clergymen, etc., were not always called up for active service. So, do you know any reason why any of the brothers wouldn't be called up for service?
Well, my cousin tells me that one of the brothers was actually an instrument maker.
Right.
He tells me that some of the instruments he used to make was barometers, micrometers and that kind, you know, real...
Perhaps compasses?
Could be, I don't know.
Because compasses are needed by soldiers. Someone that was involved in those sort of instrument making, that would be definitely reserved occupation.
Could be.
Yeah. Keith, we want to advise you now about how you can go forward with your research. We'd like you to look at the electoral registers list, especially for 1918, and the absent voters list Entries on this absent voters list will provide a name, a number, and a regiment that they'd served up to. Right. So soldiers in between 1916 and 1918 enrolled in regiments, and those regiments can be found. We wish you all the luck with your research.
Thank you very much.
Great advice there from Onyeka. Let's hope Keith can use it to find out if his 4 great-uncles served their country. Now, when our next visitor spotted a photo in a local paper, he thought it was his nephew, until he realised the photo was taken nearly 150 years ago.
My name is Stephen Scullion. I come from a place called Felling in Gateshead. I was looking at the local newspaper. I saw this photograph of a young boy, and his name was James Scullion. It was quite spooky because he looked so like one of my nephews, and there was a gap of about 150 years. It got me to thinking if there were any James Scullions in my family history, and what I'm trying to ascertain is if that link is there. I will be absolutely delighted if there's anything. If there's nothing necessarily, then that's fine as well. At least I know.
Stephen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming along today, and thank you for bringing us this marvellous photograph.
It wasn't a local magazine. It caught my eye because it resembles a nephew of mine, Matthew. So I delved into it a little bit further. What I managed to find out wasn't really much. The name, James Scullion, I think he's age 13, and he was up in front of the local beak, so to speak, for stealing a loaf of bread or whatever. That's about it, really.
We think it's 1870s, and in 1871, they sort of put this act into place that meant they had to start taking photographs of criminals. So they wanted to be able to identify them, just so everybody can get the same kind of experience you got. Let's have a look at the 2 of them side by side.
Right, yeah. When you look at the 2 photographs, the one and the same person, even the hairstyle looks similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So this is your family tree, and we're focused here on the Scullion line, and we've taken it right back to your 2 times great-grandfather, Francis Scullion, who was born in Ireland, and about 1850 came out to England. Now, he may have been coming out because of the potato famine, because we know that was going on at that time. And Patrick was born in Heworth, in Gateshead. I mean, the first thing we wanted to do was to see, well, is there a James Scullion? And indeed, there is. In fact, there's many.
Yeah.
It seemed to be a reasonably popular combination of names, James Scullion. So we started doing some good, hard research. So this is the Market Waiton Reformatory book. This is essentially the entry book for what we strongly believe is the James Scullion who's in that photograph. Now, it's July 1873, which gives us a really good date for that photo. I just want to give you some idea of the detail that's on here. It says his place of birth was in Ireland, and it says 1860. His father was listed as a John Scullion, who's dead. His mother, Mary Mulholland, and they've also noted that she lived in Spring Garden Lane, Sunderland. Now, remember where your Scullion ancestors were.
Yeah.
Not that far away. Scullion's an interesting name, and we get our surnames from lots of different places. They can be handed down from fathers, or, you know, one of the other options is we can get them from a place. Now, is there any connection in your Scullion connection to Ballyscullion?
That's what I came to that, well, not that conclusion, but I know that there's a Ballyscullion, and I think it's not too far from Belfast, if I'm right.
So we were able to find a baptism record for James Scullion, and you can see it here. It's date the 29th of March, 1863. This is a parish register, and it's for the parish of Ballyscullion.
Excellent.
Our roguish lad, James Scullion, was from Ballyscullion. So we're kind of getting close here. And you think there's a connection to Ballyscullion. Here's another Scullion with documented evidence pointing to Ballyscullion. Tantalisingly close. So now we know where he was from. We know your family. We know the Scullions. We know that there's a connection back to Ireland. We know that James is a common name in the family. We just can't get the records. We just don't have and have been unable to find that smoking gun record. So where do we go now? Let's take another look at the photos. Now, we've just changed the colour on them to make them both the same colour. We got a photographic expert to look at this, Maureen Taylor, and I'm just going to paraphrase some of the things that she said. If you look at the tilt to the ears, the similar nose, the deep-set eyes, and they even have the same small mouth. She said that there's a very strong positive correlation between these two people that suggests that there's a connection. For her to point that out with her background and her expertise, it says a lot. We've done a little bit of photo merging, and I think you'll be blown away by what you're about to see.
Oh, goodness. Absolutely amazing. It's unbelievable. There's got to be some link there. There has to be. Absolutely amazing. Very impressed.
My question to you, when you look at that, do you need proof?
I think that's proof enough, to be honest. Now, when I'm looking at that, that's all the proof I need. Fantastic.
Stephen, thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. And thank you so much.
Stephen, when you saw that merged photo, you looked shell-shocked.
Absolutely fantastic. Words just really failed me. I was trying to think of something to say. I have no idea what came out of my mouth at that moment. I really don't. Even though the link isn't 100%, I think it's near as close as it can get, really. It could have been the same person, even though there's 140, 150 years between them. That, to me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with that. It's close enough, really.
That's proof for you.
Yeah, that'll do me.
That'll do you. I'm really glad. Going to take a bit of time to sink in, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everybody for all of the efforts that they put in as well. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you. It's a great story.
Thank you. Thank you.
A satisfying conclusion there to Stephen's family mystery, and certainly proof enough for him.
It's been a day of revelations and fascinating stories that these families will remember forever. Until the next time, goodbye.